again, the Nutty Professor, and I'm here with another car podcast. Now this car, the old Mercedes, this belongs to me. It's my parents bought it way back. It's a 1981 Mercedes 280E. And my parents bought it when it was 6-7 years old. So we've had it for pretty close to 30 years now. And it is now officially in my name. My father has turned over the collectible cars to me. This car, this is a special guest appearance. This car belongs to a friend of mine who has very kindly consented to bring his car for a comparison between an old Mercedes Benz and a new Mercedes Benz. Now this one is a 300C 4MATIC, turbo engine, 2017. And just looking at them, and I was trying to think of the similarities between the two. And I was one of the things I came up with was possibly the emblem. Even that's different. You see, the emblem on that one sticks up. It's on a spring, and it's been stolen a couple of times. We've had to replace it. Now, this one, the emblem is inside the grille. It's a big star, it doesn't stick up. And yesterday I was getting gas in this at the gas station, and there was a young man with a 2015 S-Class AMG, very, very fancy version of Mercedes. And he admired my car. He said his grandfather had one when he was growing up, and it was his first exposure to a Mercedes. And he admired my car, and I told him, I said, my car's got that thing on the front. And he showed me. He said his car still has it. 2015 S-Class, I think, was one of the last that still had the sticking up emblem. And it was very important to this young man. It was a symbol. And he said, I wouldn't buy one. My grandfather's car had it, and I wouldn't buy one that has a... And I know some people who are really big on that. They have this removed, and they put the star in, So now, other differences. This one has a chrome and rubber bumper. This one has got all the fancy, it's chrome down there, and then it's got a mesh grille, and it's got the parking sensors. So that leads me to something, a difference between the two. This car, back in 1981, was a luxury car. It was pretty expensive back then. The new one probably cost about $32,000. Back then you could buy a regular car, like a good quality Ford or Mercury, an American car, for $10,000. This was like 3 times as expensive. And it had a lot of features for a car of that era. It has the power sunroof, it has power windows, it has central locking, not remote. You got to put your key in and turn it, Now, this car, 36 years newer than this car. 36 years newer, that's more than the age of the owner of this car. This is like 36 years older, this one to that. And some of the technological advancements in that 36 years. This car, like I said, it had the sunroof, it had the power windows, but whoever originally bought this car, ordered it, for some reason, they did not get the passenger side mirror. Apparently didn't become mandatory until 2-3 years later. So back then, you could get a car with only the mirror, and it's manual. There's a little lever thingy on the inside of the mirror that you can wiggle it, and the mirror moves. But this one, it has no mirror on the passenger side. So when I'm driving this car on the highway, I have to keep turning, looking over my shoulder. Before I change lanes, there's no mirror. Now, people have told me I could probably have one installed, but it's not really worth it. Hardly ever use the car. It's part of the collection. It's mostly, it lives out in storage at my country house, and I bring it to the city once a year. Take it on cruises, take it to car shows once in a while, you know. So I hardly ever use it. It's not worth getting a special mirror attached. Don't use it enough. But speaking about mirrors, you know, my friend just showed me the fanciness of the mirror of this car. You see how it's kind of resting, you know? So when you park the car, it goes in like that, you know? And it's on both sides, not just one side, it's on both sides, you know? So when you get to your car and you just have to go like that, look at that. It blinks too, you know, it opens, okay? And then when you want to shut it, you know, you go like that and it blinks on both sides. Now look at that, look at the difference in 36 years, you know. They didn't have the technology back then for that. And, you know, they didn't even bother. I mean, safety wasn't a big deal, you know. They didn't even put a mirror on the, my friend was kind of amazed that these cars back then, he goes, no airbags? And I go, they hadn't invented airbags. I said, they didn't invent airbags until the 90s. You know, these cars, and the older cars, they didn't even have seat belts. Back in the early 60s, and yeah, no seat belts, you know. Seat belts came in the late 60s, they were just the lap belts, you know. Now this one has got proper seat belts, you know. And I will show you the other features of the car later, the back and the inside. Just looking at the two from the front, you can see the changes over the years. You know, this car, sleeker, it's like a space thingy, and it's got fancy LED lights when you turn it on, you know. And this one, it's got glass. These are glass. This is all plastic, but inside it's like they swivel around and they do all kinds of shit, you know. So this is like really, really fancy, you know. And you can see this is getting kind of an aggressive stance, you know. They use these cars a lot, I've been told, in they're still surviving. They're very reliable. They use these cars in Africa and the Middle East. They're still running, and they use these as taxis, you know. And I've sometimes imagined South America, maybe a drug lord, you know, who it was his grandfather's car or his father's car, and I could just picture him sitting in the back of this, smoking a cigar, you know, the chauffeur driving, and then maybe bodyguards in front and behind, and like black Suburbans, you know. I could just see that yellow old Mercedes with the thingy on the chrome, and you know, the kind of the style for a drug lord, you know. But that's just my imagination. But so there's a difference of 36 years between these cars. A lot of technological advancements here. This one, it's old school. It's like solid metal. It's got chrome. Inside, it's got wood, you know. So I'll show you some of the inside and other features. Now, this is the interior of the 1981 Mercedes Benz, and it has, for the time, it has some features. You press this button, and there's a power sunroof. It opens and it closes. You know, this is all vinyl, but this is real wood. The new ones don't have real wood anymore. And you'll see the new one, there are some design similarities. They also have round vents, completely different style, much more modern. But this one has power window buttons are in the middle. Now this car is getting old, so a couple of the windows don't actually work anymore. But this one works, and that one works, and the sunroof works. You know, everybody thinks that this is leather interior, and it looks just like leather, but it's actually what they used to call back then MB-Tex, stands for Mercedes Benz texture, and it really means vinyl, you know? But they look just like leather, you know. This is the interior. You don't have the tilt wheel or anything. You've got very straightforward dashes. You have a power antenna button. antenna doesn't work anymore. And it had air conditioning, climate control, but this was the climate control. It was a little knob. You move it up and you move it down, and it's got a blue and it's got red, you know. Now the air conditioning hasn't worked on this car in many years. My father had tried to get it fixed, but it's a very big thing. It's the only one of our cars, the entire collection, where the air conditioning doesn't work. But we hardly use it, just occasionally to the car shows. But other than that, you sit very comfortably. It's got a big wheel with the star in the center, you know. And so this is the interior of the Mercedes. This is the back of the 1981 Mercedes. And I'm going to point out a couple of similarities between this and the new one. Now, one is we have the emblem here, the top of the trunk lid, you know, and that car also has the emblem. It's about the same location, but his emblem is a bit smaller. Okay? Mine is a bigger emblem, you know, and it's up here. Now, another similarity is my car back there. This is the underneath the windshield on the inside, the back windshield. There's a little plastic container thing, and it's got a green cross on it. And when you lift it up, this comes out. And this is the first aid kit that came with the car 38 years ago. Never been used. There's Band-Aids in here. There's bandages. There's stuff to staunch the bleeding. You know. So that is the first aid kit from the 1981. Now I found out that the 2017 also has a first aid kit, but it's a bit bigger. It's black, and it lives in the trunk. It lives in the bottom of the trunk. This car, I also just found out, but the new car doesn't have a spare tire. Mine's got like a regular spare tire. This one doesn't have a spare tire. It's all fancy because, you know, even when you get a flat, you can still drive on them. They're called drive-on flats or something. There's some technical thing. You don't need to change the tire. You can just go to the garage and get it changed. But this one, so where the spare tire should be, in the bottom of the trunk, there's a first aid kit, you know, and it's like a very fancy first aid kit. I'm not going to open it, you know. Another thing I wanted to point out here. Now, this is the key for my friend's new car. And it's all fancy. It doesn't have metal here, you know. And you go near the car, and then you touch the door, and this happens and that happens, and it's chrome, and it's like this super fancy fob. This is the key for my car. Now, originally it came in a black thingy, but the metal part came out, you know. So I've taped it. And the other key, I have a spare key, that's also taped. Because with the old cars, the metal keeps coming out of the black thingy, you know. Now there's no remote or anything, you know. So it looks like a Egyptian mummy. It's all wrapped up, you know. It works, as long as it works, you know. But look at that. And look at that, you know. You can see the difference, you know. Mine didn't even have the emblem in it back when it had the black thing. But anyway, it's the taped up key. So that's another little contrast. This is what happens when cars get old, you know. Kind of like with people, you know, things start not working. Okay, that is our comparison of the two cars. I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of thanks to my friend for bringing his car, you know, and I hope you enjoyed the comparison of the very old Mercedes and the new one. Okay? And I was just talking about how way back we used to talk about how in the TV shows and stuff they used to say by 2020 cars will be flying and stuff like that. It's not flying, the new one is, but it does a lot of tricks. It's got all kinds of electronic shit, and the mirrors do this and do that, and it's got cameras. It doesn't fly. Okay. Anyway, this is the Nutty Professor. I'll be back again with another car podcast. Probably won't be able to get a special guest next time, but I'm going to bring my old BMW convertible, maybe the next one. You know. So we're so far. Nutty Professor car collection, we've seen 3 of them. See the Corvette, the Porsche, and this. Okay? So again, thanks to my crew and thanks to my friend for bringing his car. See you next podcast. Bye. Happy motoring if you're a motorist. Bye from the Nutty Professor.